I just got three things to say. God bless our troops, God bless America, and gentlemen, start your engine!
Welcome to the Stire Sound podcast with your hosts, Trey, Stire, and Jack Noel.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 24 of the Stire Sound. Anaheim 1 is in the books. What a fun night of racing, a wild night of racing, and after Anaheim 1, old guys rule. Eli Tomac, Max Anstie getting the job done. Max Anstie by a single day becoming the oldest rider to ever win a 250 Supercross main event, and Eli Tomac extending his record streak to 12 consecutive seasons with at least one 450 main event victory. What a night of action. I had a view from the press box, my first ever A1. Fun weekend, tiring, but a lot of fun. Stoked to be there, stoked to check that one off the bucket list. I am Trey Stire, your host. Welcome back to the Stire Sound. Thank you for tuning in wherever you may be listening from. Joining me, as always, from the Dirt Legal Dirt Bike Depot WMR KTM team. They just had their team photo shoot last week, gearing up for the first 250 East round, which will be toward the end of February at AT&T Stadium at Arlington, Texas. Jack Noel, what's up, man? A fantastic way to kick off the season. What a night at Anaheim 1.
Yeah, I think it was a great race. I think it was a great way to kind of kick off the season, kind of jumpstart everybody into the championship. I think everybody it definitely mixed some things up. I think everybody's favorite going into this year was probably be Chase Sexton, and he did not deliver in the main event. I think a bit of a surprise maybe after his qualifying, but I think in his summary today on Instagram, it kind of summed it up perfectly. He felt rusty. I think you look at guys like Tomac, Roxon, Anderson, even like Hunter Lawrence, guys who have did an off-season race, Paris and Ozx Open, stuff like that. Those guys are, had a gate drop or two since the last outdoor season. And I think that kind of stuff honestly matters. I really do. And I think it showed that those guys were ready to race. And I'll tell you what, Tomac was really, really good. And it's going to be really scary if he's going to be that good all season. And yeah, man, it was a great way to kick off the 2026 season. And I'm excited for more races.
Will be very scary if Eli can keep that form going. Makes me feel like an idiot from the prediction show where I was like, man, Eli Tomac had two races. One of them was really good. One of them was kind of bad. If he keeps this up, man, this is going to be a long season for everybody involved. But starting with the 450 class, of course, you mentioned in qualifying, Chase Sexton got the job done, fastest qualifier. He and Eli were really battling the entire time to see who would be on top. Chase got the last laugh. Then when you move into the heat races, a lot of chaos going on in the heats. Jorge Prado getting a heat race victory. He looked good all day, and I'm sure we're going to talk about him a little more. But Cooper Webb and Aaron Plessinger went down out of the lead in one of the heats. AP ended up going to the LCQ. Then the second heat race, Ken Roxon just cruising out there. Chase Sexton was looking good, and then he had a weird crash as he was going over the tunnel jump, the bridge, whatever you'd like to call it. Very strange crash, but it was Kenny and Jorge getting the heat race victories. LCQ, a very stacked LCQ, which it usually is for Anaheim 1, and of course there's so many factory guys right now. AP, Justin Cooper, Colt Nichols, Mitchell Harrison survived. Garrett Marchbanks did not. Went down in the whoops. D and Q for Marchbanks 2 years after Hunter Lawrence starts his 450 Supercross career with a D and Q. Garrett Marchbanks does the same. Bummer ending for him. Main event time. Eli Tomac rips out front. Here we go. But then there's a massive crash. Malcolm Stewart doubles the triple. Justin Barcia lands on his front end. KOs himself, gets knocked out. Anderson gets collected. Nichols gets collected. Faulkner gets collected. And Malcolm was shaken up in the crash. Ended up limping with assistance from the medical team off the track. He's also favoring his shoulder a little bit. I believe dislocated shoulder was the diagnosis for Malcolm. And something I'll talk about a little bit later is a bit of frustration with the medical crew. Barsha, very scary incident. That part of the track where it occurred, I did not have a very good view of anything going on because of the giant finish line arch being in my way. When Barsha hit the ground, I didn't know who it was exactly. When he was laying there, all I saw was a white Tech 10 boot, and until the Ducati folks started running over, I had no idea it was Barsha. Of course, Ferrandis went down on the first corner in the original start, so by process of elimination, I knew it wasn't him. But they re-racked him, 20 bikes on the gate instead of 22, and it was the Eli Tomac and Ken Roczen show. As I tweeted the other night, Eli and Kenny took those boys to Gapplebee's. They left everyone behind. And Jorge Prado was steady in third, man. He had a great run. He pulled the whole shot and was running right up there up front. He lost touch with the first two, but was still keeping a good pace. Cooper Webb, not the best rider at Anaheim 1 typically, but some weird mistakes out of Cooper Webb you don't usually see. Chase Sexton, a bit rusty, as you mentioned. Not quite a great performance for Chase in his first showing with Kawasaki. Justin Cooper had to work through the pack. Some other guys having bad races, but Eli Tomac, career win number 54. He held off Ken Roczen. Both of them were trading great lap times. Kenny would reel him in. Then Eli would pull out just a little bit further again. It was back and forth, a seesaw battle, and those two really were the class of the field. Eli and Kenny 1-2. And wow, Jorge Prado, who would have expected? We talked about some podium dark horses. We were saying, what does Jorge Prado do with KTM? Does he get back to a good form, or does he carry over the burden and the disappointment of last year? And it seems like a fresh start. Jorge is ready to roll. Third overall, he held off the pressure from Hunter Lawrence. What a performance from the Spaniard to claim his first podium in America. His bike did fail sound testing, and he lost a couple points in the championship, but I'm sure he is very stoked with third overall, and it seemed like on the podium he was like, man, I didn't expect this maybe at all this year, let alone at Anaheim 1. Then a little bit further down the list you have Hunter Lawrence 4th, Jason Anderson top 5 in his return with Suzuki. Then you have guys like Cooper, Webb, Sexton on down the line. Unfortunately, a couple guys injured, of course, like we mentioned, Barsha and Mookie down. But other than that, that was the one stain on an otherwise fantastic evening of racing, especially in the 450 class, so many contenders. The 4 wide moment was really sick. I forgot to mention in the second 450 heat, Sexton, Kenny, Hunter, and Justin Hill were all side by side, looking like a NASCAR race out there, 4 wide. But what a fun night. A lot of questions still. Of course, Anaheim 1 can't really determine the full season off of one race, and a lot of times it has wild results. But as you mentioned, Eli Tomac looks very dangerous. He looked comfortable all weekend from my point of view, and what a performance to kick off the brand new partnership between Eli and Red Bull KTM.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like the Anaheim 1, it's not like a championship loser for guys, and it's not a championship winner for anybody, being that it's the first race, but it definitely does, in my opinion, kind of catapult guys into a conversation for that championship, just based off like how they looked at the first round. Like a guy like Ken Roczen, who I think might have been on the bubble for some guys as being a championship contender this year. I think it definitely solidifies, he has the pace to run up front with Kenny or with Tomac. If he can sustain his health and not kind of go through them dips and valleys and not, stay more consistent and be on like the podium consistently, I think he definitely is a guy that can compete for this championship. Tomac, I mean, the question marks that people may have had surrounding him after his Australia performance, I think he silenced those critics. I think he put in a valiant effort and looked very, very comfortable on his bike. I think moving forward, we'll just we'll see how he looks like moving east. I think he's more comfortable with that harder packed, like not very rutted corner dirt. I think it just kind of suits his style a little bit better. And yeah, I think you look at a guy like Chase. I think from the heat race, obviously he's up there battling with Kenny for first, and then this is where, in my opinion, the whole race goes downhill for him. Is he passes Kenny right before the over-under, goes inside, tries to hit the 3-on to that tabletop, and he cases it. So he doesn't hit it right, makes a mistake, Kenny gets him back. And from there on, I think it was like it kind of woke him up a little bit, and it kind of like not, it ruffled some feathers, and then it ended up turning into a crash. It looked like he kind of endoed and like was trying to push the back end down, going into the face of that in the face of the over under, because you kind of landed like the gully of it. And as he did that, it just the front end took all the brunt force and just slid out from under him, which is a bummer. But nonetheless, it was good to see him at least get back on the bike and not be injured or hurt or anything like that, which is something you'd hate to see to a guy like him. And then Cooper Webb, I mean, I'm going to just bring him up because I think that red flag really kind of shot him down in a sense. I think before that, I mean, he was out front before the red flag happened, and it looked like he had the pace to go at least a really, really quick first couple laps. He looked really, really intense right off the get on that bike. I mean, he looked really, really good, I think, for the first, lap or lap and a half or whatever it was that we got to watch. But I think that kind of took the wind out of his sails a little bit after having a bad start. And yeah, no, it was a great race, and I really do, I think for a guy like Prado, for example, like to come out of the gates right away after saying everything he did with Cowie and how bad it was and all this stuff and how he didn't like the bike, and then immediately show on paper his results. He backed up everything. He backed up his fourth in qualifying with a heat race win. Granted, he got a little bit lucky, but won a heat race and then backed up in the main event. I mean, heck, it's not easy to run. I mean, granted, he wasn't on the pace of Eli and Ken, but he maintained that third place. He didn't make any major mistakes, didn't get flustered by the pressure of being in a podium position. And although I think Anderson and Lawrence behind him kind of were holding up to the pack and not really able to gain on him per se, I think it showed that he was very resilient and didn't, proven that he has the experience and the mental with capability of sustaining that position and not letting the pressure get to him, which I think is the true testament of a champion, to be completely honest with you. And I think the MXGP days and all that stuff is really, that in my opinion is a reason why he's able to do what he just did. But yeah, no, I think it's really good for a guy like Prado. I don't know if it puts him in the conversation of champion necessarily, but I think he could even be better when it gets ruddy and more technical. And I think that's when you'll see him be better. Just when the tracks kind of slow down a little bit, maybe it'll kind of bring it all together. I think a guy like Jay Coop, even though he went to the LCQ, I think he rode really well. Don't know if he's going to be in the championship talk necessarily, but if he can get a podium early, I think it could potentially, in the next 3 rounds, if he can get a podium, which I don't think is out of the question really, he could, put himself in that conversation of being a potential title contender with how things are looking right now. But I don't know. I mean, Tomac looks good. Roxon looks good. I think these next few rounds are kind of dictate that. I think if Chase can have a rebound round, which I think is in play, I think the rust will kind of wear off quickly for a guy like Chase, just being how experienced he is in the 450 class. And I don't think the bike's a major issue, although I don't think it looked very good. I think you can agree with that. I think if you watch the TV coverage back, I mean, when they were really focusing on what he was doing, a lot of weird little mistakes, and it seemed like he wasn't able to ride at 100%. And every time it seemed like he was like trying to push himself, and he would like close the gap to whoever was in front of him, and you have to start making some different line choices and moving around a little bit. It started to look uncomfortable, and I think those little nicks and crannies are just part of being on a new motorcycle, especially being back at your first race. I think it's a thing that kind of the kinks will work itself out. But no, yeah, the championship definitely is ramping up, and I'm excited to see how these guys stack up. I mean, with no Jet, it really does have the doors wide open to anybody to be able to put their mark on this title and potentially make it theirs. So I'm excited for San Diego, and I'm sure you are too.
I did notice a lot of what you were saying about Chase in the main event especially. He just seemed a little out of sorts out there, just not quite his usual level of attacking and speed. It seemed like he was just a little bit uncomfortable and trying to figure things out, and it led to some little mistakes here and there that crept in. And if I would have to give the biggest winner of Anaheim award, it would definitely be Jorge Prado. Of course, we talked a lot about the drama with Kawasaki, and we were kind of writing him off and saying, he's just being a drama queen, all of that, but he goes out there and pulls this. I mean, I saw clips of him ripping during the off season, but flying at the test track and flying at the racetrack are 2 completely different things, and Jorge really impressed me all day, like you said. Qualifying was good. Heat race was good. Yes, Cooper and AP went down, but Jorge rode a steady race, held off Tomac for the win even. Tomac was charging, but Jorge kept it clean, kept it smooth, held off for the win, and then to run third place the entire main event, to be steady for a guy who was in his, what was this, his like 7th or 8th Supercross main event. I mean, I think that's pretty solid. And if you're KTM, you have to be excited. Moving on to the 250 class, and it was a roller coaster for us as the host because for the first half of the race, I looked like an absolute genius from my Anaheim 1 winner prediction. And then the last half of the race, I'm sure Jack was grinning like a Cheshire cat because his championship pick just rolled through the field and started leading that race. Ended up winning Max Anstie. For the second year in a row, he wins an opener. Of course, he won the 250 East opener at Tampa last year. Max just coming off an 11 out of 15 win season in the World Supercross Championship. What a race. All day, all weekend, honestly. I could tell by his demeanor from the press conference on Friday. You just tell by looking at him. He was just quietly confident and looked ready for racing. Some of the other guys, were sometimes they can put on a front or sometimes they can say one thing but mean another. Max, you could just tell right away, like this guy is going to be quick. He's going to be fast. It didn't jump off the page in qualifying. He was only 7th. He shows up when it matters and put on an impressive run in the main event. Chance Hymas 2nd. We talked about him. Jack especially was promoting Chance as a potential wild card. And I kind of believe it, man. The whoop speed is legit. Maybe the best I've seen in the 250 class from Anaheim 1, but a great ride from Chance considering you talk about the rust. He's been off the motorcycle off the gate since June at High Point, and now he's back with a second place in his return. That's a huge result for Chance and a confidence builder. And now with that ride, I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see him get a win this season. Not going to say he's going to rattle off several and be in title contention, but a great start nonetheless from Chance. And then Ryder DeFrancisco on the Rockstar Husqvarna, 3rd place. He's keeping the mustache, got the whole shot, led the first half of the main event. And man, he got out there in front. I'm like, oh my goodness, here we go. It didn't end up lasting, but still, first career podium, a great result for Ryder D. Hopefully he can keep the momentum up, and he held off the pressure from Hayden Deegan. I was right. I said in the predictions about that, I was like, Hayden's going to get a bad start. He's going to have to work his way through the pack. And indeed, that happened. Hayden, one of his biggest weaknesses, in Supercross at least, is starts. It was prevalent even on the 450 in World Supercross this year, in my opinion. But Hayden, he worked through the pack. It took him a long time to get past the Club MX guys. Granted, if you go check out my Unsung Heroes piece from this week, I saw on press day Maximus Voland was behind Hayden Deegan in both press day sessions, essentially mirroring all of his lines. It wasn't a surprise to me to see Deegan have trouble getting around Voland because Max knew everywhere on that track that Hayden was probably going to go. Hayden claims 4th overall. Then you look down through the order a little bit. Michael Mosman 5th after coming through the LCQ. 6th place Levi Kitchen after going down on the start. 7th and 8th for the Club MX boys, Voland and Yoder. And then all the way back in 22nd after some contact from Hayden Deegan, Cameron McAdoo. But what a start from Max Anstie. Jack has been on the Anstie train since before World Supercross started. Now another win for Max. The number 61 is going to have the red plate heading into San Diego. It was another fun race. Selfishly, I wanted to see Ryder D pull it off because of my prediction from last episode, but he rode a great race. Awesome to see him fighting up there for the podium. But a fun start to the year in the 250 class. I think anytime the past couple years or so we've seen a different winner other than Jet or Deegan in the 250 class, it's been pretty fun to watch. But what an opener, and what a statement from Max Anstie to start the season. All the beef with Deegan and Kitchen. You're worried about the wrong guy, pal.
I completely agree, Trey, and I've been saying it all year, or ever since World Supercross started. Max Anstie is legit. Max Anstie, in my opinion, is the biggest threat to Hayden Deegan for this title. I think he's going to win this thing. I think the pressure doesn't get to a guy like that. I don't think the talk works for a guy like that. He's too old. He's too mature. He's been around this sport for much, much longer than a guy like Hayden Deegan has. And he's been performing at the highest level for the last 3 or 4 years now. I mean, he held the red plate on the Firepower Honda bike in 2024, I believe it was. And
Yep.
I mean, like a guy like that. Granted, you look back at that at Birmingham, and if he doesn't do that, I think he has a potential chance to win that title as well on a privateer Honda. Like that's crazy to me. To count a guy like Max on what clearly is the best 250 in the class is stupid, and I don't think anybody really put enough respect on his name to go out there and win that race. Like it wasn't like a some shocker necessarily that a guy like him won, but I think it definitely stamps his name on as a title contender, and I think he knew that going into the season. I think some people did, some people didn't, but the 250 class definitely did deliver, in my opinion. I mean, Hymas looked really, really good. I think he looked comfortable. I don't think he looked like he was, letting the pressure get to him. He's a pretty, smooth dude. Like he's pretty chill. He doesn't seem to let the crap talk or whatever, let it bother him. And I think that's a guy that could potentially contend for this title as well. I think it'll be a 4 or 5 man race, really. I think Deegan, Kitchen, Hymas, Anstie, and then maybe you throw in a guy like Ryder D if he can continue to click off some podiums. It's going to be really good. I'm excited for this West Coast. I think there's a lot of fast dudes over there, and I don't know, man. I think Deegan is on Supercross a little bit hyped up. I don't think he's as good as people think he is, and I think it showed. Like if he was really that good, he'd have worked his way to a minimum a podium, I think. But it took him a while to work through the field of. And this is where I think the East and the West is a little bit different. I think the East Coast, like we've always talked about, is a little bit more depthy inside the top from like a 5 to 15 range. I think it's pretty close. Like those positions can kind of mix up whenever. But the West Coast really, like there's 6 or 7 really fast guys, and then it kind of falls off in pace. Like there's a clear difference in my opinion on who's fast and who's not, right? So yeah, I don't know. I think like him not being able to work through the pack as quickly as I would have imagined, being that he raced some off-season races, and granted it wasn't on the 250, but still having those gate drops I think is definitely a beneficiary to anybody really. So and then Kitchen I think looked okay. I mean he looked fast in qualifying, which is I think a good sign. I think he was qualified fastest if I'm not wrong, correct?
Yep, he was fastest.
So I think that's a good sign for Levi. I don't think it's a question of if the speed's there or not. I think a similar situation to Chase. I think it's just like knocking the rust off and getting back into the swing of things. I think for him, if he can get a good start, which we've seen what he can do if he gets a whole shot. I mean, the guy doesn't lose. So I think that's just the key for Levi and Deegan as well. I think getting a good start and being up there, but then being inside the top 5 after the second or third lap, I think it's going to be the key for those guys. If they continue to start outside the top 10, they're going to struggle this year. I don't think it's going to be that easy for them. And but yeah, this 250 class is wide open. It's really like who can stay the most consistent over time. And I think with Max winning that first race, it puts him in the driver's seat, in my opinion, to take this title home.
Next part of the show, I'm going to keep mine pretty brief. Biggest overreaction from A1, and we've mentioned some things we think could happen throughout the year, but I am going to give a glimpse into my 250 predictions for San Diego, but my overreaction from Anaheim 1 is that San Diego is a must-win for Levi Kitchen. And as you said, yes, he looked fast at times, but going down early and finishing 6th in the opening main event of the year, I said in our prediction episode that Levi Kitchen could very well be the Joe Shimoda of this season, where Joe had a bit of a down year in 2024 and then came out swinging in 2025. Yes, he had the finger injury, but if you take away some of those races, Joe was much improved and really started to catch fire when people were starting to write him off. Now Kitchen comes in a bit of a down 2025. I said he could be the guy to really be the dark horse and to take the fight to Hayden Deegan and then potentially break out during the summer, and this is not a good start. He was fast in qualifying, but a 6th place. Yes, he rode from the back, but a disappointing result, and I feel like with all the talk, even though Deegan didn't get the win, Kitchen has to have some kind of an answer. We are creeping up on almost a year since Kitchen's won. It was the second East round. I think it was mid-February last year, the last time Kitchen won a race at Detroit after the whole red flag scenario. I think Levi Kitchen really needs to get out there and win San Diego. He is going to be my 250 win pick for San Diego. We'll have more podium predictions later, but I just feel like Kitchen has to strike now or risk having the momentum pass him up and the battle really going to an Anstie Deegan, maybe even Hymas fight if he doesn't turn it around quick.
That's a good take. I think you're right though. I think if he doesn't want the pressure to amount and get to him in a sense of like it's every race is a must win. I think this race is as much of a must win as anything. I completely agree with that take, Trey. My overreaction, I think it's that Max Anstie has to continue the streak that he's on of like winning or like continuously being right there in the fight. I think even if Max, let's say he doesn't have a great weekend in San Diego, I don't think that necessarily dictates his season-long fight for this title. I think if he goes out there and gets a top 5, I think it's we continue on with our year of Max Anstie being in this title talk. So that's my thing. I think people, if he does get off the podium and he's not on the inside the top 3, I think people might look at it and be like, oh, it's a one race thing. It's over now, whatever. I think it's fine. I don't think it's a huge deal. I think he's going to have a couple off weekends where he's not maybe running the speed or doesn't get the greatest start and has to work through the pack. But I think in any sense, I think if you can keep the momentum rolling, I think it's important. So I think it's not a must-win for a guy like Max Anstie to keep his name relevant necessarily, but I think that's what most people are probably thinking, that he has to be, on the podium if he wants to, keep Deegan on his toes. But another thing that I'd like to say is I think that this next round for Deegan, like you said with Levi, is a must-win. I think if Deegan doesn't go out there and get a win in these next, let's say, before, after Anaheim 2, if Deegan doesn't have a win yet, I think everybody's gonna be scratching their head like, "Whoa, what's going on with this guy?" You know what I mean? So I think Deegan's in the same situation, especially if he has another off weekend like he did last weekend. It doesn't get the ball rolling early. I think it could be a situation that we haven't seen for Hayden in a long time. I mean, the whole situation with his 2024 championship hopes was kind of like blew off in the wind. He was just didn't really have a whole lot going for him. I mean, he was so far out of the championship, it didn't really matter. Nobody really expected him to do much or compete really for the title when Tom was the points leader. But I think for Deegan, I think if this thing slips away from him, it's going to be bad. I think the pressure could get to a guy like that. He's never really been under that sort of pressure. I think last year on the West Coast, he was with, Shimoda getting hurt in San Diego, and then he wasn't really in the fight in San Diego, but Anaheim 2, he came through and he was, I think he won Anaheim 2, correct?
Yeah, that was the race where he really started to rough up Juju as well.
Yeah, so like he started, playing the bad guy, which I think a guy like if Max goes out there and wins San Diego and Hayden doesn't get a top, it finishes, let's say, in 3rd or 4th, I think he starts trying to play that game with Max. I think it's going to be a completely different story. I don't think it's going to be at all like it was with a guy like Julian Wilmer, who I think let the pressure of Deegan kind of poking at him get to him a little bit. So yeah, I'm excited to see how everything plays out in San Diego. I think it's a very I feel like the first 3 rounds, like after A2, you kind of see like, okay, this is like the blueprint we have for the championship. This is what's going to happen. After round 3, I think these next 2 rounds for Hayden Deegan are very, very important to get his hands, on a win in these next 2 rounds. I think San Diego is one of those things where he needs to be there. Otherwise, it's the heads are going to start. People are going to start scratching their heads about what he has in the tank.
A new segment I'm bringing on for this week's edition, based off of my observations and being at the track on Saturday night, the complaint box. My complaints about this week are 2 things. Number 1, and I will preface this by saying I am not in any way, shape, or form a medical expert. There are a lot of people upset, and I think rightfully so, with the Alpine Stars Mobile Medical Unit on Saturday night with the whole Stewart Barsha crash. Yes, Malcolm Stewart was visibly hurt. Should he have been helped? Absolutely. But you have Justin Barsha laying motionless, unconscious, in the middle of a berm. I don't know how long it took for somebody to get to him. He was just laying there. I know somebody told me that Jason Anderson's like looking back, like, is this guy okay? You see some of the Ducati people start to move their way up, and they're still helping Mookie, and like I said, Mookie should have been helped. He needed it. He limped off. He was very sore, hurting a lot. But Barsha is just laying there and laying there. And I think the first thing they did when they came over to Barsha, which I couldn't really see anything, but I don't know if they were messing with his head and neck as the very first thing. But that doesn't seem like a great option. And I know a lot of people were complaining about it, and I feel that way as well. I know you only have so many people, but I feel like if you are a medical person, you should pay attention first of all to somebody who might not be conscious. Yes, Malcolm was very hurt. He was on his knees. You could tell when he got up. He was limping very badly, holding his shoulder a little bit, his wrist, whatever he was holding. But I think if a guy is unconscious, if he's just laying in the middle of the track, like you got to help that guy first. You got to prioritize getting help to whoever needs it most. And it was just, I don't know what to say about it exactly. And in qualifying, another example, Jack Chambers wads himself in one of the rhythm lanes, goes down hard, and I couldn't tell for sure, but from my vantage point, it looked like he knocked himself out. Maybe he just knocked the wind out of himself and I couldn't really see. Granted, I'm up fairly high in the press box, but it looked to me, just from my point of view, like Chambers knocked himself out. He ends up getting up and they take him away on the cart. He races the same night at Anaheim 1. I don't know whether he knocked himself out or not for sure, but you could tell in the night show he wasn't racing like his normal self. He lost positions in the heat race, then in the LCQ. I mean, Matty Jorgensen flew past him like he's standing still. And I'm not trying to insult Matty Jorgensen. He's a solid rider. But Jorgensen, he clicked a gear in the whoops, and I mean, he made Chambers look silly. And Chambers, he couldn't find a way around Lorenzo Camporisi. And once again, no offense to Lorenzo, but it's been 5 years since Lorenzo's qualified for a main event. Granted, he's not been over here in America for a while, but he's really an 18 to 22 level guy and not much more if he makes the show. And Jack was a 10 to 15 level guy in the 250 East Series last year. It concerns me, and I know we've had some of these conversations before with the medical team. I remember back to Faulkner's big crash in Arlington where they had him up walking minutes after he went splat on the concrete floor. I don't know. Just from my point of view, I'm frustrated a little bit because you want to see all of these riders healthy and okay, and sometimes the decision making, like I said, I'm not a medical expert, but it makes you scratch your head a little bit. And then the other thing, this whole Podium Scrum thing, and I'm sure a lot of people will be talking about this, but no more Podium press conferences with the top 3 finishers. It's going to be a Scrum, and not only is it going to be a Scrum, it's going to be the 251 took place right after the podium celebration. So guess what? The people who went there, they missed the start of the 450 main event. They missed everything that happened with the Barsha Stewart crash, and I think they even missed the restart and missed Prado getting a whole shot and some of the other stuff. Every single person that was there covering the race, trying to, or possibly going to the media scrum, was not a fan. From several different outlets I heard this from people from RacerX, Swap Moto Live, other areas, not a fan of this format, and I personally wasn't either. I didn't even attempt to go over for the 250 scrum personally because I knew I wouldn't make it back in time for the 450 race, and I'm like, my priority, I need to see this 450 race. It is my job to write about the races and to know what's happening, and if I'm stuck in a scrum asking questions for half the main event, I'm not doing my job because I'm going to have to go back and watch the Peacock broadcast to figure out what happened in the first part of the main event while I'm at the stadium, which shouldn't happen, but I think Feld usually does a good job, and I think they should have taken more of an if it ain't broke, don't fix it sort of mentality to this. I don't think the old format was necessarily perfect, but at the same time, I understand trying something new and wanting to do something better, but in this instance, it just didn't work out, and I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see them go to a bit of a different format or go back to the old one for the next race. Jack, I don't know if you have an opinion on either of these things that I've just brought up. Of course, you were at home. You might not have been able to see or hear some of this stuff, but just a couple things that frustrated me and I wanted to get off of my chest. I hope that we have some better medical stuff next time. Make sure all the guys are taken care of. We just want to see all of the guys okay, nothing bad happening. And then with the scrum thing, like I said, I mean, the Feld guys usually do an awesome job of taking care of stuff, but I think this was a miss, and Steve Mathis was tweeting about the same thing. I think it was one of those things where if it ain't broke, don't fix it, or if it's not completely broken, don't fix it. The last format had its flaws, but was still overall, I think, a lot better way to do this. And there were a lot of people left out in the cold, missing parts of the 450 main event because they went to interview the 250 class.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much to say about the whole medical unit thing. I didn't really see much of it. I don't know, like you obviously were there, so it's a little bit different for you. Obviously, you're able to see it first person. But hearing about the medical or the not the medical the podium scrum thing, I think it is a little bit weird. I think the press conferences were a simple way to, there's three guys up there, you get 30 minutes with each guy or with the podium guys each class, and I think it's a good way to kind of go about things. I think doing it directly after the 250 race when there's a race still to go is kind of crazy. But I don't know, maybe it's one of those things where you do it while they're doing their podium, and then the 250 guys are in there while they're on the podium doing whatever, and then you have guys that are the 250 guys are getting interviewed, and then the 450 guys coming right after their podium speeches and they do theirs. So I don't know, there's a little bit that is interesting to hear about that. But I think my biggest takeaway, like complaint box, I guess you could say, for the tough blocks, I mean, like it visually looked better. Like I think it made the track look a bit wider than it has in years past, but I don't really think it solved the problem that people were maybe looking for. I think the tough blocks being lined across the entire track is a little bit, I think it's not necessarily necessary, in my opinion. I think the tops of the berms, I think some of the landings, like, like after the triples or whatever, like you kind of find some things like that where you can put a tough block. But in my opinion, the tough blocks being triangular doesn't really affect much, because if you land on it, no, don't get me wrong, you're going to go down. We saw with Joey Sabashi. I think that's been a problem where, like, a guy like that, like if he doesn't, like, the tough blocks can make it crash way worse. Like a guy like Sabashi, who kind of went off the track a little bit, landed on a tough block, probably no tough block there, doesn't go down. Or if he does, he goes out on the slick stuff on the outside of the track, and it's just a little fall down. It's not really much of a complete slam, or the bike gets grabbed out from underneath you, and you get thrown to the ground. I think that's a little bit of an overrated thing. I think it's good that they're trying to find like an alternative necessarily, but I think there needs to be a different style or a different way that they can maybe put less out there. I think tough blocks aren't necessarily a good thing. Sometimes, yes, they do save some people, but I think it causes more crashes than it saves. So I don't know. It's like kind of weird. I like it's very, very interesting, I think. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's my complaint of the weekend. I think the tough block being changed doesn't really do much. I think it was kind of it looks better, and I think it makes the track a little bit wider, and it's better because maybe guy doesn't get his foot peg grabbed on one because it's a little bit lower or whatever. And then maybe too, I did see that Matty Jorgensen got one stuck in between his bike, and I think it was probably easier that it was a triangular figure compared to like a box. Trying to get it out made it maybe a little bit easier, but I think at the same time, like, it still causes crashes, and I think it still is something that there could be a new way to go about that. Just moving forward, I think there's a way. Like, I think World Supercross still blocks. I don't think they're like as firm, but they're like very, like, they break away, and like they kind of like don't snag you. Like they're like so like they're almost they don't look like cardboard boxes. I know they're like just like foam, but like I don't know. I just like noticed that a lot. Like guys could run them over and it wouldn't get caught up in their bike, and it wouldn't like snag on stuff, and it wouldn't do things like that. Like it looked like a better route to go tough block wise, and it kind of serves the same purpose. Like, yeah, it can break a fall away, but like they're not on every little like jump or cranny of the track. They're not slammed together around the whole thing. So stuff like that I noticed. I think that could be better. I don't know. I think you could probably agree with that in the sense of tough blocks don't need to be on every single little jump. I know it's a sponsor thing too, so that's a hard thing to pull away. But yeah, that's what I thought. At least was the tough blocks were not any different, really.
I agree. I like that they're trying to do something different, but I also see your point. I mean, I didn't have as much complaints about the triangular ones. I mean, overall, it doesn't seem like it's a ton different from the square ones, the rectangle ones. But as you mentioned, World Supercross might have this the best. I don't think there's going to ever be a perfect way to do tough blocks, but like you said, where they just break away pretty much. They don't get stuck. They don't get in between suspension and a radiator, or they don't get wrapped around the rear wheel and the chain and the rear brake and all of that stuff like we've seen in the past with some of the other Tuff blocks. It's a very hard thing to do because, once again, safety, sponsorship, there are so many things that go into it, but I think you have some good points there. I do respect it once again for trying something different. They look cool. They look like they could be better, but also I feel like this is something that maybe we should be revisiting later in the season as well, because once again, it's just one round. We could be overreacting a little bit, but I definitely get a lot of your points about this. Will it really be successful in preventing things? And with your examples that you brought up, like Joey Savacci, I'm not sure. And the usage of them, yes, they should be a little bit more spread out. I think overall, they should not be covering every single side of the track. Like, you got to have some space to get back on and off the track if you're off. Before we get to our predictions for the week, I would like to say episode number 24 of the Stire Sound podcast. I'm dedicating this one. I'm sure Jack is not going to mind. This one, episode number 24, dedicated to the life and the memory of Jamie Bradford. We lost a great one this weekend. Saturday in the morning, we got the news. Actually, Saturday afternoon for me, up in the press box, I saw it on social media. And for those of you who might not know the story, Jamie Bradford, the older sister of Cole Bradford, who competed last year and a couple years before that for the HBI racing team, lost her battle with cancer. She'd been battling the disease, a very rare and aggressive form. I believe it was called RMS for a few years. And unfortunately, she lost her battle. I only had the chance to meet Jamie once, but one of the most incredible people I've ever had the chance to meet. Just a ray of light, always smiling, always so positive despite all the cards she was dealt. And what a wonderful person. And even though I wasn't super close with her and only got a few times to talk to her, just what an incredible person she was. And I know a lot of people were hurting. Thoughts and prayers are with the family and friends. But I just wanted to say, episode number 24, we're still thinking of you, Jamie. We miss you. And this episode is dedicated to you, Jack. Don't know if you have anything to add to that, but we lost a good one this weekend, man.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely a bummer to hear, and it's one of those things where it's a disease that she was fighting for a long time, and she lived a full life, in my opinion. I think every time you see her, she was always smiling and always brightening your mood. She never was down on how she maybe had been feeling or been doing or whatever. She always was someone that brought joy every time you're around her, and it was always cool to see how much she supported her brother in the journey he was on, and you saw how much Cole supported her through all her troubles and whatnot. And it's definitely a bummer to see someone like her go away, but at the end of the day, I look at it as they're in a better place, and they're no longer hurting. And it's always it's a bummer to see someone get taken away from us so soon. But I always look at it as they're always in a better place, and I hope she's looking down on whoever it is and is smiling, and hopefully that we can remember her in a bright, meaningful way, and hope that we can all bring awareness to the fact that cancer kills and it sucks, and hopefully we can find a cure and something that can save the rest of everybody else who's dealing with the same problems. And yeah, that's what I gotta say. It was just, she was a great person, and it was not good to see somebody like that go. So it sucks.
Well said, man. Rest in peace, Jamie Bradford. Thank you for all you've done for so many people and being such a ray of light. Now we move in to the final segment of our show. Of course, our podium predictions and our random spot. Just for reference, everybody, I think there were a total of 50 points on the line every weekend, and Jack is the leader after Anaheim 1 with 15. So that tells you how well we did with our Anaheim 1 predictions. We were both off. We had some moments of brilliance, some things that were close. I had Ken Rocks winning. Kenny got second. I had Ryder D winning. He got up on the podium. Jack had Max Anstie on the podium, I know. So there he got a few points from that. He had Eli Tomac on his podium and Kenny as well. So that's where he got it up on me. I had two people, trying to remember who I had as my other podium pick that got on the board and helped me out a little bit. I think it might have been Anstie. I think I had him in third. It's a brand new week. Also, our random spot was 12th place. We missed it. I missed it by one spot in the 450 class and the 250 class. Savacci, or 2 spots in the 250 class. I had Joey Savacci. He got 13th. I had Parker Ross. He got 14th. Jack's pick, Christian Craig, was 1 ahead of 12th. Christian Craig got 11th, and he also had Avery Long, who was 9th. So we were close at least. We were in the range. I'm going to go ahead and rifle off my 250 predictions for the podium. I mentioned already, I think Levi Kitchen gets it done this weekend. He needs to win. It's a must win, I feel like, for the 47. I'm going to have Hayden Deegan second, Max Anstie third. I think the main event goes better in San Diego for Deegan, but I still don't think he's going to get a victory, and I think Max Anstie's going to have a good weekend. Not quite on the level of Anaheim 1, but he's still going to get up on the podium, take home a trophy. I have Kitchen, Deegan, Anstie as my San Diego podium at Snapdragon Stadium. Who you got in the 250 class, Jack?
I think it's going to be something similar to last season where we see a first-time winner. I think I'm going to kind of go off the board here. I think I'm not first-time winner, I guess, because I'm going to put Hymas up there. I'm going Hymas. I think Hymas had a quiet second, but looked really, really good. I think he's going to come in the San Diego confident, and I think that's a big thing for him. I think he's been, like he had said, he's in a dark place in some interviews I saw, and he was struggling to, even want to ride and stuff like that. I think he's going to, after a weekend like Anaheim, I think he's going to come in and I think there's going to be some battles for the second and third that are going to kind of help him out. I think he could get some help. But I think Hymas is going to win. I think we'll see Levi Kitchen in second, and I think we're going to see Max Anstie in third. I don't think Dean gets on the podium again, or doesn't get on the podium in San Diego. I think he's going to be trying a little bit too hard maybe to make some moves happen that's going to bite him in the butt. I think that's what's going to happen, and yeah, that's my podium. What's the random spot this week, Trey?
Just a couple spots better from what we had in Anaheim. We got 10th place this week. P10. Who you got?
250 P10. I don't know. That's just tough. I'm going to go Dylan Schwartz. Dylan Schwartz really did surprise me. I think he got 8th, maybe 8th or 9th. I think
He was 10th at A1, actually.
Oh, he was. I'm going to say 10th again. He's going to get 10th again.
Summer of Schwartz starting early, baby.
I agree. I mean, that guy's nasty on outdoors. His Supercross has been iffy, but he looked pretty solid all day. I mean, you get to watch a lot of him at the B group stuff, when he stay live and whatnot. But I think he looked good. I think he's going to pull in another 10th.
B group was so much fun to watch because it was just Schwartz and Wageman. Every lap, it seemed like they were one-upping each other. One of them put down a heater, the next one would go up. It was a lot of fun to watch. Schwartz had a great race. I think for my 10th place, man, once again, that's hard. I went Parker Ross last time. I could go with another Bar X guy, but I think for 10th place at San Diego, I'm going to have to go with Avery Long. He had 9th at Anaheim 1. I think I want to go Avery for 10th this weekend. I think Mumford's going to get a little bit better. I think we see Cameron McAdoo obviously back in the fight. He was dropped down the order because of a crash. So I think I want to go. I thought about going Hunter Yoder for P10, but I'm going to go Avery Long on the AEO Power Sports KTM. Maybe it'll pay off for me. Jack went with Avery last weekend. I want to go with him now. In our 450 picks, I thought Kenny was going to win Anaheim 1, and I was very confident in that pick. Almost happened. So, for San Diego, I've got Ken Roczen winning. I think Ken Roczen is going to win one of these first couple races and really be in the championship fight, and I've been saying that. And I think this weekend it's going to be flipped. I think Kenny wins and Eli is second. That's what I'm going to go with for the podium. Could be an overreaction, but hey, it's also the start of the season. Nobody knows anything so far. For P3, I think Chase Sexton has a lot better weekend. I don't think it's necessarily going to be a perfect weekend and a perfect recovery, but I think third place in a podium is going to be a whole lot better than his end result and Anaheim 1. I think Cooper Webb's just going to be outside of the podium. My podium predictions for San Diego in the 450 class, I have a flip-flop of the Anaheim 1 top 2, Kenny winning, Tomac second. Then I have Chase P3, and then for my 10th place random spot pick, I am going to go with, I think, Dylan Ferrandis on the Red Bull Troy Lee Designs Ducati Corsa Factory Racing Desmo 450. I think I got all the words in the right order there. But I got Ferrandis for P10 this week.
It's a good pick. I was thinking about Ferrandis too. I think Chase is going to win this weekend. I think he's going to rebound and I think he's going to get a good start. I think he's going to go out there and he's going to silence the doubters right away. I think he kind of does that sometimes when it comes to people. He kind of gets pushed out of the question a little bit. Maybe the hype is gone, but I think he's going to come through and the pressure's off and just knows he needs to go out there and perform. And I think he's going to get it done. I don't think we see Ken Roczen on the podium again, unfortunately. I do think we see Eli Tomac up there. I think Tomac will have to fight for this one. I think Tomac will get to second, but I think it'll be a guy like Cooper Webb in third. I think that Cooper's going to kind of start up there in the front, and I think Chase is going to be top 5 off the start, get through right away, and I think he'll be quick. And I think he'll be making quick moves. I think he'll be figured it out, and kind of the rust will shake off quick for a guy like him, I think. And I think he'll be good if he can get out front. I don't think he'll waver. I think he's going to have a almost perfect day, I would think. I think he's going to go fastest qualifier, probably win his heat race, and then win the main event. I think that's the biggest key for him is being up there right away and not being where he was in a state of having a bad heat race. I think that matters a lot for a guy like Chase. But yeah, I got Chase, Tomac, Webb. I think Tomac comes through the pack. I think he looks really good again, but I think Chase is going to be too far out in front for anybody to compete. And in 10th place this weekend, this is going to sound bad, but I'm going to put Jorge Prado here. I'm putting Jorge Prado here for a reason. I don't think Jorge's going to I think he's going to be coming in off the high. He's going to get a little bit too confident. I think he's going to have a little bit of a mishap. He's going to be running top 5. Mishap puts him back to about 12th, 13th. He gets his way back up to 10th. Hate to wish a guy to crash, but I just think that's what's going to happen. I think he's just going to be – he could get in over his head a little bit if he does get out front again. But, yeah, I got Jorge Prado on 10th. I think that's a bit of a stretch maybe, but I think that's something that to definitely happen. I think that the top 4 guys between Tomac, Kenny, Sexton, and Webb, I think those guys are going to be on a different level all year. And I think that 5 through 10 range is going to just bounce around a lot this year. I don't know. I think that's my picks for the weekend, and I'm excited to watch San Diego.
Honestly, Jorge was in my contention for 10th as well. I feel like it's going to be a little bit less of a great result. Anaheim won. I also had Joey Savacci I was considering. But those are our podium predictions for San Diego. Let's hope they go a little better than last time. But this has been episode number 24 of the Stire Sound, wrapping up the Anaheim 1 Supercross, a very exciting weekend and fun racing. For Jack Noel, I am Trey Stire. Thank you for listening, and the Stire Sound is fading out. See you next week, everybody.